ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Donna Just Being Real, the only way to be. And today is day 22, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Kate Moss and Depp's psychologist testify in defamation. Okay, so Kate Moss is Johnny Depp's ex-girlfriend. And I forgot what day it was in court, but Amber Heard said something about Kate Moss. So Kate Moss is here to clear things up a bit. So we're going to watch it. So today I'm just going to be showing a clip of what happened on day 22 today. So I'm going to show this clip, see what Kate Moss had to say. And also, the psychologist that was there before has something to say too. So it's kind of like a rebuttal today. All right. So anybody who's new to my channel is named Donna Just Being Real, the only way to be. My channel is about dating, love, relationship, toxic relationship. And I touch on true crimes of passion as a teaching tool, advice channel. If that's your type of commentary, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and also you can contact me if you have any viewers requests. Check out my email address that's in the description and about page, okay? So let's get into it, all right? We're going to move on to it. So I'm going to play this clip and share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. People that's watching and replay, let me know, what did you think about this whole thing today? And also let me know, are you Team Johnny or are you Team Amber Heard? Okay, let's get it. Listen to the music while I get ready to share the screen. Alrighty. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it.
Okay.
I'm going to fast forward this part.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, please be seated. Next witness.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mr. Depp calls Kate Moss to the stand. She will be appearing on your screen.
All right, ma'am, can you hear me?
Girlfriend. Read the description.
Yes, can you count to 5 for me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you, ma'am. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Moss, or I should say good afternoon, your time. My name is Ben Chu from the firm of Brown Rudnick. Would you please state your full name for the record?
Kate Moss.
Ms. Moss, where do you reside?
London, England.
From where are you testifying today, Ms. Moss?
Gloucestershire, England.
Ms. Moss, do you know Johnny Depp?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Mr. Depp?
I had a relationship with him.
Did there come a time when you and Mr. Depp had a romantic relationship?
Yes.
For how long, Ms. Moss, were you and Mr. Depp a romantic couple?
From 1993 to 1994 to 1998.
Ms. Moss, did there come a time when you, while you and Mr. Depp were a couple, that the two of you took a vacation together to the Golden Eye Resort in Jamaica?
Yes.
What, if anything, happened when you were in Jamaica with Mr. Depp?
We were leaving the room, and Johnny left the room before I did, and there had been a rainstorm, and as I left the room, I slid down the stairs, and I hurt my back.
How did you...
And
I apologize, Ms. Moss. Please continue.
And I screamed because I was because I didn't know what had happened to me, and I was in pain, and he came running back to help me and carried me to my room and got me medical attention.
Did Mr. Depp push you in any way down the stairs?
No,
During the course of your relationship, did he ever push you down any stairs?
no, he never pushed me, kicked me, or threw me down any stairs.
Ms. Moss, have you ever before today testified in any kind of court proceeding?
No, I have never.
Why did you decide to testify today?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right.
That's beyond the scope of what we just talked about.
All right. let's just-
Let her answer
Thank
the
you,
question.
Ms. Moss. We have nothing further at this time. We greatly appreciate your taking the time to
All
testify.
right. Any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right. You're free to go. Thank you, Ms. Moss.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Of course, they're not going to cross-examine her, because they can't. Because Amber Heard basically lied on the stand and said that when there was some situation between Johnny Depp and I think Amber Heard's sister, I'm not quite sure, but she said, "Oh my God, I panicked because the first thing I thought about was when he pushed Kate Moss down the stairs." So since she brought that up, Johnny Depp's lawyers were like, "Hey, we got to clear this up." So that's why she's here to speak about her ex, Johnny Depp. I resume. Ha ha ha. Amber Heard, liar, liar, pants on fire.
What can I do to blast the bloat, peel off the pounds, wipe out the wrinkles, and have tiger blood energy? I uncovered 3.
All right. Your next witness.
Your Honor, we're calling Dr. Shannon Curry.
Just give us a moment to move the TV.
Exactly, Nikki. Exactly.
All right. Dr. Curry.
Okay, I put on a little bit of a faster speed, 1.25. Now, Dr. Curry was the one that was here before, and she was the one who was saying about how Amber Heard has borderline personality disorder and histrionic. But now she's here to do a rebuttal. So let's listen to what she has to say. A rebuttal on Johnny Depp's behalf.
Good morning, Ms. Jensen.
Good morning. Please call Shannon Curry, Dr. Shannon Curry.
That's fine. Ma'am, you're still under oath, so please have a seat, doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Curry.
Good morning.
Can you remind the jury who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Dr. Shannon Curry. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist, and I'm here today to rebut the testimony that was provided by Dr. Hughes.
Which of the opinions rendered by Dr. Hughes do you intend to rebut?
So generally speaking, there are three main categories that I'd like to talk about today. So the first is that Dr. Hughes misrepresented the tests and the results that she utilized in her evaluation. She misrepresented my testing and the results that I obtained in my evaluation. And she communicated in a manner, provided testimony in a manner that presented essentially her own opinions and the self-report of Ms. Heard as facts.
Okay, the first category you talked about was the misrepresentation of her own test methods and results. What do you mean by that?
So Dr. Hughes she stated that she administered 12 tests. In actuality, she used 8 checklists. About half of those were symptom checklists.
Now, Dr. Hughes that she's talking about was the doctor that was on Amber Heard's side that was testifying. And basically, it was a bunch of it was just insane. So basically, it's just rebuttal. So this doctor is coming back to do a rebuttal on what Amber Heard's side said that there's psychiatrist Hughes. Yeah, Hughes. I got it. Let's resume.
The other half were checklists about experiences that people can have with domestic violence, and those are not appropriate for forensic settings. They are easily exploited.
Other issues that you intend to address relative to misrepresentation of own results?
Yes, so in addition to using these checklist measures, which are easily exploited in a forensic context, they're developed for research or treatment only. She also stated that these checklists revealed things that they simply cannot reveal, especially in this context. Let's see. She also misrepresented information, clear indications on several of the objective measures that she offered. And there were indications visible that Ms. Heard had essentially engaged in what we call response distortion. So clear indications of exaggeration on one of the measures that's specific to PTSD, clear minimization of symptoms intentional on another more broad personality and psychopathology based measure that she gave to Ms. Heard, which she did not acknowledge.
Did you intend to address anything relative to the CAPS-5?
I did. So Dr. Hughes administered the CAPS-5 about 10 days after I did, almost 2 years after she initially tested Ms. Heard. And she did not administer the test appropriately. So she left major components blank. She didn't apply the scoring rules that are clearly outlined with the test. And yet she diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD based on that assessment.
What about Dr. Hughes's use of the personality assessment inventory?
So of the tests that Dr. Hughes administered, 2 would be considered, of those 12, 2 would be considered what we call forensically relevant instruments, meaning that they're objective enough and they provide us with some information about how the examinee approached the test, that it would be appropriate for this setting where the examinee is going to have a natural incentive to present themselves in a way that benefits the outcome of their case. Now, on the PAI, there were clear indications that Ms. Heard was responding and obtained scores in a manner that's consistent with individuals who have a personality disorder. And there was also an indication that several scales, we call this a configuration. So you might have one main scale that you notice is elevated, then you look for additional subscale information to get additional information on what could be elevating that scale. And there was a configuration that showed that even though Ms. Heard had moderately elevated one of the scales that can be associated with trauma, that elevation is better explained by childhood or distant traumatic experiences like the complex trauma Ms. Heard reported experiencing growing up.
Okay. You said that Dr. Hughes utilized checklists that are not appropriate for forensic analysis. Can you
Yes.
explain that?
Yes, so
You see this app right here? It's called
as I said, in any sort of forensic context, whether it's a civil or a criminal matter, a person who's being evaluated is going to have major incentive to present in a way that benefits the outcome of their case. So you always approach the examination, I believe Dr. Hughes said, with a healthy dose of skepticism, but that alone is not enough. We have to operationalize that. So we actually have to administer very comprehensive objective tests that either control for attempts to manipulate the test results or reveal attempts to manipulate the test results, so that we're not just blindly accepting the results or the self-report of the examinee.
How many tests were administered by Dr. Hughes?
She said that she administered 12 tests.
How many of them were appropriate for forensic physical examination?
So the trauma symptom inventory is appropriate. It's an objective measure, and it does have 2 primary scales that look at how the person approached the test. The personality assessment inventory is an excellent test. It is a broadband measure, meaning that it captures not only symptoms of mental illness, but also general personality traits. That also gives us pretty detailed scales similar to that one test I administered, the MMPI, that tell us a lot of nuanced information about the way the person approached the test. She also administered a malingering screen that can be very, very useful, but not in this context. So it's called the Miller Forensic Assessment Symptom Test. It's a brief set of questions that you ask the examinee, and it's been shown by research to be extremely effective at identifying an examinee's attempts to fake a severe mental illness or psychosis. And psychosis is when somebody loses complete connection with reality. It's excellent for that purpose. It's actually been shown in research to not be effective at all for identifying a respondent's attempts to fake PTSD, anxiety, or mood disorders. The questions are just too odd for somebody who has the wherewithal to be trying to have PTSD to endorse. They see through it. So she used that. That's a fine test, but not appropriate for this context.
Of the various tests that she administered, how many were these checklists?
8 of them.
All right, and what are you talking about specifically?
Okay. So I had mentioned that there were 2 main categories of checklists she used. The first is the symptom checklists. Those included the Beck Depression Inventory. It's a brief inventory of items that essentially show all of the symptoms of depression that a person might have, and you rate which level of severity you have for each question. She also gave the Beck Anxiety Inventory, very similar, but just with questions about anxiety. She gave the Mood Disorder Questionnaire, which is a very brief, again, checklist. It shows symptoms of bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder where you might have an extended manic episode and then a very extended depressive episode. And then she gave the Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Checklist, and that is a screening instrument only. It contains every single symptom of PTSD. So there's a secondary danger here too. When you think about it, given that PTSD is the most frequently feigned and claimed diagnosis in civil courts, if you're handing somebody a checklist that lists every single symptom of PTSD, you're essentially teaching them all the little nuances that we're looking for to give that diagnosis. So she gave that to Ms. Hurd. Ms. Hurd endorsed most of the items, and Dr. Hughes diagnosed her with PTSD and substantiated that opinion by Ms. Hurd's checking those items on the PCL-5.
Were there another group of checklists that Dr. Hughes used?
Yes, so she also, and I forgot one on the last because I don't think of it as one, but previously I'd explained, and I do not expect you to remember, it's called the Life Events Checklist, which is just an inventory of experiences a person may have gone through that are traumatic. Dr. Hughes also used that, and that's appropriate to use before the clinician-administered PTSD scale, the gold standard CAPS-5. However, she administered this long ago before she gave the CAPS-5. Now that going on to the second group, there were 3 checklists that she gave that are specific to abuse. And the first she gave, the Danger Assessment Scale, was actually developed for use by nursing staff in an emergency room setting, specifically for female victims of intimate partner violence. The purpose of this is important because our forensic ethics, our psychology ethics, talk a lot about relevance. Is the test relevant to the purpose? And the Danger Assessment Scale, its initial purpose was completely different. This was developed to show high risk factors for dangerousness and pretty much to help a female who is in an extremely abusive partnership, who is in the emergency room with extreme injuries, to stop rationalizing, because if she has to check off all the things that have happened that year that have been dangerous, does he own a gun? Has he, I won't go into all of them, but the more she checks off, the more likely it is that she might realize that she is in imminent danger and then accept resources offered by the hospital and social work to protect her. That was the purpose of this scale. It was never intended to be used as a retrospective measure to look back in time and find out whether abuse was occurring based on one person's report years later in a litigation.
When people look at films that are super beloved and they hear stories about the difficulties or tragedies that happen.
We also gave the conflict tactics scale revised, the second edition. Similarly, this scale was developed for research purposes, to research family violence. Again, there is no control for exaggeration or minimizing. It was just given to research participants anonymously so that we could get data on the prevalence of abuse and how abusive dynamics work. And on that, there's 39 questions where the respondent indicates essentially certain abusive behaviors they may have engaged in, and then 39 where they indicate behaviors their partner might have engaged in. And obviously you can understand that in a forensic setting, the respondent is likely to put a very minimal amount of behaviors they engaged in and then extremely increase the number of behaviors their partner might have. And then lastly, let's see, the abusive behaviors observation checklist was the third checklist she gave. This one has not, there's no known research even on its effectiveness for what it was developed. It's a theoretical, very brief checklist that was meant to be used for therapy, where an individual who had experienced domestic violence could essentially read through some of the behaviors that constitute violence that they might not have been aware of. And if those behaviors applied to them, or if some of those coping strategies were ones they utilized, they would check that off. And then they have a way to talk about it because now it's been put to words.
Nikki, I don't understand your question. You asked why is she talking like that? Are you talking about the psychologist, the forensic psychologist? Because if you are, well, basically, there was a psychologist that was, I believe, forensic psychologist that was on Amber Heard's team, and she was saying all of this stuff. So this one here came back again to do a rebuttal, saying that that psychologist doesn't know what they was talking about because they didn't do a proper examination. She doesn't have no PTSD. She basically she played the game with you. She was lying. Because there's certain procedures that you do. There's certain ways that you're supposed, okay, that's what you're talking about. There's certain ways, I guess these psychologists, they're supposed to test and examine a person. And I didn't get to see that person, I think it was Hughes, I think it was. I didn't really get a chance to see exactly what did she have to say, but I know it was something about her was a little bit off. So basically the bottom line is all these people on Amber Heard's lawyers that they bring it up here to testify, they're a bunch of bull crap. They all wrong. But the people that Johnny Depp is bringing out there are reputable and they're making sense. So this is why she came back, because she's the one who came she came up here to testify and said that Amber Heard has borderline personality disorder. She has histrionic disorder, such and such. So now she's come back to do a rebuttal against the other psychologist. Okay, hopefully you got that one. All right, let's go. Forensic psychologist. Let's get it.
Again, this is similarly problematic. If you're in a civil litigation, the person's motivated to have the results be consistent with a claim or an allegation of intimate partner violence and an allegation that they've been severely harmed, then they could simply just check off more. And not only that, but checklists like this one specifically give a lot of nuanced information about what clinicians might be looking for when they're assessing whether violence was present or whether the person's self-report is consistent with a genuine self-report of having been victimized. They're given all that information that we might be looking for.
Teresa,
can you talk specifically about Dr. Hughes' use of I think you called it the PCL-5?
Yes. So the PCL-5 is the post-traumatic stress disorder checklist. This is different, not to be confused with the CAPS-5, which I've talked about previously as being the gold standard. The PCL-5 was developed by the National Center of PTSD. It's intended for treatment. So if I were, for instance, working with a service member who I know had been in combat, I would probably give this as a standard with my intake. Before we do the diagnostic interview, it kind of gives me a read on how somebody who's there for treatment, who we assume can be taken at their word, because if they give us correct information, they're going to get an appropriate treatment. And if they give us incorrect, they might not get the treatment they need. So I would give this checklist to them, and then if they recognize some of those symptoms of PTSD, they could check it off. And that would probably indicate to me that I need to then do the next step. If they're checking off more items than not, I would probably decide to administer the clinician-administered PTSD scale, that gold standard interview, to find out more about a diagnosis.
The last thing is what everybody refers to as the CAPS-5.
Yes, the CAPS 5.
What about, well, you talked about forensic use. What do you mean by that?
So when I'm talking about forensic evaluation, that's an evaluation that isn't done for therapy or treatment. It's specifically to assist the fact finder, to assist the judge or the jury in the court by providing information about the psychological status about an individual. And that's an important delineation too. We are not psychologists. I wish we were mind readers. I wish we had a crystal ball and could find out whether intimate partner violence occurred and look back in the past, but it's nothing like that. Really, it's a lot less interesting. We look at data. We have to control for those response biases. And then we also are looking at functioning, which is really the bottom line of the assessment. Did the person have a change in functioning from before the alleged trauma, or in this case, the alleged IPV, to after? Is there a decline in the way they're going about their lives?
Objection, Your Honor, may we approach? All right.
I'll fast forward this part. Of course, I know you want to approach a bench. Ha ha ha. Amber Heard's team, you're messing up.
Dr. Curry, let's look back at some of those domestic violence checklists that you were talking about.
Okay.
And did you see any problem with the use of those?
Yes.
What problems did you see?
Well, Doctor, first of all, they shouldn't be used. So we do have professional standards that require that we utilize instruments that are relevant and appropriate for the particular setting, and that we substantiate our opinions based on data that is reliable from tested, accurate, reliable tests for the purpose. So there's that. It's inconsistent with the ethics. And essentially, they just shouldn't be used. They don't provide us with the robust information that it would be expected in such a high-stakes setting.
Would you have expected Dr. Hughes to comment on the limitations of the checklist she was using?
Yes. So first of all, Dr. Hughes provided opinions based on these checklists.
Nikki, you got jokes. They probably was. They was begging her, please get rid of this, throw it out the window. Sorry, you can't throw it out. I resume.
Checklist. So she referenced especially the danger assessment scale several times throughout her testimony, stating that Ms. Heard was in a very dangerous situation. We also have an ethical guideline and a professional standard as well that indicate that whenever there is question about the reliability and the validity, and in psychology, we use the term validity to talk about accuracy of any of the methods that we're using to collect data, we clearly communicate not only that there are limitations to our opinions, but we also need to provide the fact finder with information about what the potential implications or impact could actually be. So for instance, if we use a scale that's idiosyncratic for the purpose, but we would first need to explain why we made that decision to not follow standard procedures. And then we would need to explain the use of this scale might introduce some potential exaggeration of this symptom, and so I'm trying to control for that way, but that was one of the limitations of my opinion. You have to make it very clear. Transparency is really at the center of good science in general.
You talked a little bit about ignoring response distortion. What is response distortion?
Response distortion is a term that speaks generally about an examinee approaching a test and providing answers that are
Just look how Amber Heard is steady writing little Post-its. I would love to know what she's writing. Amber, you're really wasting your time. You're making a fool out of yourself. You are a complete liar. Okay? You're a liar. That's how you've been since a child. You're a liar. I resume. I'm not going to play this whole part. I'm going to probably fast forward because I want to hear the part when she gets cross-examined by Amber Heard's lawyers, the doctor, because that part I did kind of miss too. But I just want you to get the idea of what she's saying about the rebuttal. I resume.
Are either exaggerated or minimized, but in some way an inaccurate representation of their current mental status or their experience.
What test do you believe that Dr. Hughes failed to acknowledge response distortion on?
So she administered the personality assessment inventory, which is similar to the test I gave the MMPI-2. It's that general broadband measure of psychopathology symptoms and personality traits. It includes several scales that are very good at detecting either exaggeration, minimization, or even trying to claim that you have unusually good qualities. On that test, there were clear indicators that Ms. Heard, very similar to the way she approached my MMPI, engaged in defensiveness. And in fact, there's a function that you can look at. So you have that main scale elevation, we call it positive impression management, was elevated. And then because we want to make sure that somebody isn't elevating that scale just because they have such well-being, there are additional configurations of scales that you can look at to find out what's going on. And so the Cashel discriminant function is sort of the name of one of these configurations, these equations that are done. And she was highly elevated on that. In fact, that elevation tells you that no, this isn't accidental. This isn't because she's just doing so well in life that she has an extremely, extremely low amount of problems. No, this is an intentional over-reporting, or I'm sorry, an intentional effort to minimize any appearance of having problems.
Now, you may have addressed this, but there was a reference to malingering.
Yes. So what's interesting about Ms. Heard's approach to different tests is that it seems to be influenced by what we call the face validity of questions on the test. So if a test looks like it's measuring PTSD, you see exaggeration on her validity scales. If the test has less face valid questions, for instance, the personality assessment, which Dr. Hughes administered, the MMPI-2, which I administered, where she can't quite figure out what the questions are asking, they seem really banal in general. On those, you see extreme defensiveness, minimization of any potential pathology, essentially presenting herself as perfect and free of any mental illness or personality disorder. But on the trauma symptom inventory, which Dr. Hughes administered, that was the one that I previously indicated for ease of explanation. When the test results come out for how the person approaches the test, that test itself prints it as a percentage. And there's a really excellent scale for finding out if a person is exaggerating their symptoms of PTSD. It's called the atypical response scale. And the TSI-2 is the revised version of this test, and that scale was improved this time around to really try to be a clean indication of, is this person exaggerating? And it puts quite high questions in the test that are so unusual. They might sound like PTSD, but even the most severe cases of PTSD don't have these symptoms. And so somebody who's intentionally trying to exaggerate PTSD, or possibly unintentionally, but nonetheless, who's exaggerating it, is likely to endorse these items, even though they're not real PTSD symptoms. Ms. Heard scored so highly on this that even if there is, although Dr. Hughes correctly said, there tends to be a negative skew when people have the high levels of distress that's associated with PTSD. So sometimes people score higher on this, even when they do have PTSD. She scored so high that that is effectively ruled out as a possibility.
Okay.
Busted.
About Dr. Hughes's administration and use of the CAPS-5?
Okay.
Stop paying full price on Best Buy.
So Dr. Hughes had diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD back in 2019 when she began testing her. It wasn't until 2 years later, more than 2 years later, 10 days after I administered the CAPS-5 with Ms. Heard, that Dr. Hughes held an impromptu evaluation session remotely with Ms. Heard and administered the CAPS-5. She had previously diagnosed PTSD without using what we consider to be the gold standard PTSD diagnostic interview. And again, when we're doing a forensic evaluation, it is an important responsibility, and part of our ethics and professional standards are that we document everything to allow for transparency and full judicial scrutiny. And Dr. Hughes administered incorrectly. She left huge sections, very relevant sections blank. There's no way to understand why she scored it as high as she did based on the information that's provided. You're essentially supposed to notate the examinee's responses as verbatim as possible to explain your reasoning and implying their scoring procedure. It's a standardized test. And if you don't follow those standard procedures, it's completely invalid. Not only that, but it looks as though Dr. Hughes further invalidated it by trying to show that she had assessed for the childhood trauma impact. And she had said that she went back and asked the childhood question, but you can't do that. If you're assessing for two separate periods of one's life to find out the relatedness to PTSD, you do two separate CAPS interviews, period. You don't create your own question system. That is non-standard administration of the test, and it invalidates it.
All right. You also mentioned with respect to the PAI, or the personality assessment inventory, that Dr. Hughes failed to mention some elements. What did she fail to mention?
Oh, okay. So on the personality assessment inventory, so first she failed to mention that there were clear indications of response distortion. She also failed to mention that Ms. Hurd scored in her score profile against their main scores. She did elevate a score for the borderline personality disorder sort of section, but that in and of itself would not.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward this because I want to see what she cross-examined by Amber Heard's lawyer. So I'm going to fast forward this. I'm going to find the spot. So give me a second here.
Personal opinions or the self-report of an examinee as an expert fact or somehow scientifically based, when it is essentially constraining our testimony to the data and not including, talked about Ms. Hurd being in a highly dangerous situation. These are simply things that we cannot detect based on testing and a psychological evaluation.
Dr. Curry, I just want to make sure that we all remember, you're not board certified, correct?
No, I'm not.
Okay. And you've been licensed for how long?
This is it.
I've been licensed for 10 years.
Okay. And you are being paid by Mr. Depp's legal team to be here, correct?
Yes.
How much have you charged so far?
I actually don't know.
Over 100,000?
I truly don't know. I don't do my own books.
Over 200,000?
I don't know.
Over 300,000?
That would be way too much, but I do not know.
Okay. Now, just so that we all remember, you had dinner at Mr. Depp's house for 3 to 4 hours with Mr. Depp, Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, and Ms. Vasquez, correct?
I was interviewed. I asked if there was anything I could eat because at about 3 hours I started to get hungry. Mr. Depp then offered to order takeout for the entire team.
So you had dinner at Mr. Depp's home with Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, Ms. Vasquez, and Mr. Depp, correct?
Yes.
And you had drinks as well, correct?
I actually don't know. I do remember that there were drinks.
Do you recall testifying earlier that you did have a drink, a mule something?
No, I remember testifying that there might have been a mule, a Moscow mule.
Okay, thank you. We didn't have animals there as well, right?
No animals.
Okay, that's good to know. And you talked about transparency. I just want to make sure you had several designations, expert designations and reports in this case, correct?
Yes.
And in not one of them did you disclose that you had dinner and drinks at Mr. Depp's house for 3 to 4 hours with Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, and Ms. Vasquez. Is that correct?
Ms. Bredehoff, you're mischaracterizing what occurred.
Dr. Curry, please answer the question. Not once did you disclose this in any of your reports,
I did not
correct?
disclose that I was interviewed as that standard procedure.
But it's true that you have never gone to a client's house to be interviewed for an expert witness position, correct?
Yes, because I never had a client that was essentially homebound because of their celebrity status.
All right. And you talked to Mr. Depp for 3 to 4 hours before taking on the role of assessing Ms. Hurd and deciding whether she was suffering from any distress, correct?
I did not talk to Mr. Depp. I was talking to his legal team and he was there to observe.
He was present for the 3 to 4
Yes.
hours. And are you saying now he just stayed silent and said nothing all day?
I don't recall what he did or didn't do. I was answering questions.
Okay. Now, your expertise here is limited to whether Amber Heard suffers from PTSD currently. Is that correct?
Yes, I was tasked with conducting an evaluation to
Okay.
determine Ms. Heard's mental
You know, we're all on
status.
very, very strict time limitations
Okay.
because we promised to get this case to the jury. So I'd really appreciate if you just answer my question rather than trying to go further.
Sure.
Okay? Thank you very much. Now, after you had the dinner, you then provided a designation in February of 2021 in which you said, and this is long before you ever saw Amber Heard, correct? You said that Amber Heard, quote, exhibits patterns of behavior that are consistent with co-occurring cluster B personality disorder traits, especially borderline personality disorder, end of quote, correct?
No,
No, we went through this before.
we did.
But, and that was on the designation, was it not?
I told you last time that I did not write that.
Okay, and you don't know who did on the legal team, correct?
No.
Okay, and then I also asked you, if you may recall, whether you listened to the audio recording in which Mr. Depp taunted Amber Heard that she had a borderline personality disorder. Do you recall that?
I recall you asking me that, yes.
Did you recall listening to that audio tape?
I don't recall Mr. Depp taunting Ms. Heard. I do recall that he at some point suggested she might have that diagnosis.
Okay, and that was back in these audio tapes back when they were together, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now you've never before been asked to testify or serve as an expert. To someone who has bipolar disorder, correct?
No, as I previously stated, that's not true.
All right. Let's get you to that position. My extra copies were all distributed before. Does everybody have those?
Not up here anymore.
Okay, my apologies, but I'm going to go down.
Your Honor, can we approach it?
All right.
Now, you recall testifying in your deposition on March 21, 2022, correct?
Yes.
And you were under oath at that time, correct?
Yes.
And the question I just showed you on page 207, line 5, have you ever been asked to testify or serve as an expert with respect to whether someone has bipolar disorder? And your answer at that time was no, correct?
Yes, I'd forgotten that case.
Okay. And have you ever been asked to testify whether anyone has behavioral or characterological conduct that suggests they may be an IPV perpetrator?
I can't, yeah, I may have. It's difficult. After about 250 cases, it's difficult to remember specifically.
All right. And have you ever been qualified as an expert in the area of IPV?
No.
And have you ever been qualified to testify as an expert in domestic abuse or violence?
Domestic.
Abuse or violence?
Yes, that's been a component of testimony.
Right.
Give it up. Your client is lying. Amber Heard lies. Just let it go. Let it go.
Okay.
Line 16 of page 207, have you ever been qualified as an expert in the area of IPV? Your answer on line 20 was no, under oath, correct? Then the next question, have you ever been qualified to testify as an expert in domestic abuse or violence? That and goes into page 208, line 4. The answer then under oath was no. Now, you would agree that the literature is quite clear that trauma-based symptoms such as PTSD or complex PTSD have symptoms that overlap with borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you would agree that it's important to use valid and reliable measures for an accurate diagnosis, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. You chose, however, not to administer the structured clinical interview for DSM-5 personality disorders, the SCID. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. And would you agree that that is a state-of-the-art structured clinical interview?
Not for a forensic evaluation with a sophisticated examinee.
But to determine if a personality disorder is present?
No, not in this setting.
You don't agree with that?
I do not.
And you don't agree that that is the gold standard assessment for reliable, accurate psychiatric diagnosis?
It's a good one, but for treatment settings especially.
Okay. Now, did Ms. Heard, you said you talked about, you read all of the treatment records, right?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recall reading the treatment records for the psychologist Bonnie Jacobs, who saw Amber Heard over 5 years?
I do.
And did you see anything in Bonnie Jacobs' notes over 5 years in which she diagnosed Ms. Heard with borderline personality or histrionic personality disorder?
No.
Now, you also saw the notes of Dr. Connell Cohen, correct? And you even attended his deposition, correct?
Yes.
All right. And he saw Amber for roughly 2 years. He was part of the Dr. Kipper connection, right?
Yes.
Right, okay. And did you see anything in Dr. Cowan's notes? And did he say in his deposition that he diagnosed Amber Heard with borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder?
I saw the symptoms clearly delineated throughout his notes and in his deposition. He does not use diagnoses, so he would not have diagnosed her.
He said specifically in his deposition he did not diagnose her with that, correct?
Yes, and he also specifically stated that he does not use diagnoses.
All right. And you also have seen Dr. Amy Banks, the psychiatrist, her deposition, correct?
Yes,
And did Dr.
not her
Anderson,
deposition. I reviewed her notes in the transcript.
all right. Did Dr. Anderson diagnose Ms. Heard with borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder?
I don't believe she provided any diagnosis since she was a couples therapist.
All right. Now, you've said quite a bit about Don Hughes, but do you remember how many years of experience Don Hughes has in IPV and domestic abuse and violence?
I know it's quite a bit.
Extensive. And she is board certified, correct?
Yes, she is.
All right. And she spent 29 hours of examination with Amber Heard. Did she not?
Yes, mostly
Okay.
interviewing.
All right. And she interviewed her therapists, Bonnie Jacobs and Connie Cowell, correct?
Yes.
And she also interviewed Amber's late mother. Yes. Okay. And she administered 12 different tests over the period of that time, correct?
Well, as I said, the majority of those were checklists, which are inappropriate for the forensic setting.
I understand that's what you say, but she administered 12 different tests, correct?
If you want to qualify them as tests, sure.
Okay. And so you disregard, no, I'm not even going to say that. Okay. Let's go to the CAPS-5 and PTSD. Now, you assessed Ms. Heard's traumas in her life, correct?
Yes, I did give her an instrument to assess her any trauma exposure throughout the entire lifespan.
Yes, that's fine. And you wrote that Ms. Heard's exposure to a traumatic event, namely one of the sexual assaults by Mr. Depp, more than satisfied this requirement. Did you not write that in your notes?
That is not what I wrote in my notes. Do you have my notes? So we
And
can
you
look at that?
administered a structured clinical interview based on that trauma, correct?
Not exactly. It's not quite right.
Okay. Now, Dr. Hughes administered a full intimate partner violence assessment, correct?
That's not a psychological assessment. We can't assess for intimate partner violence. That's an event.
Dr. Hughes administered a full intimate partner violence assessment,
She
correct?
stated that, and that's actually something I'm rebutting today.
Okay, and you reviewed her psychological testing?
I sure did, yes.
Okay, and are you aware that in September 2019, Ms. Heard had a trauma-based symptom on many of those valid tests?
Can you be a little bit more specific? Many of those valid tests, which tests are you talking
Do
about?
you have a recollection of that, September 2019?
She administered all of her testing in September 2019, so I'm not sure which one, except for the CAPS-5, which was 10 days after mine in 2021.
Now, Dr. Hughes clinically evaluated those symptoms and established that Ms. Heard does have PTSD from the totality of the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp, correct?
That's what she stated, yes.
Okay. Now, Dr. Anderson's clinical notes that said Amber had come to...
Objection, hearsay.
I haven't even asked the question yet, Your Honor.
Are you going to read her notes?
Well, no, actually, I wasn't going to read her notes. I was
Okay.
going to ask a particular question.
Okay.
You talked about danger. Do you recall that in your testimony?
Yes.
All right. Now, if a patient comes to you as a couples therapist
Mhm.
with two black eyes, would you assess that there may be a potential danger there?
Sure.
Okay. Did you read Dr. Anderson's notes?
I believe I did.
Now, you administered the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory 2, the MMPI-2. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you used that to determine whether Amber had PTSD, right?
Not by itself, but it was a part of the data.
Okay. And in the 60 to 70 T-score range for that test, which, quote, deliberate attempts to mislead are uncommon, end quote. Isn't that correct?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
In the T-score section of that, which assesses deliberate attempts to mislead, do you recall? She scored a 60 on that test, correct?
So there are multiple T-scores for each scale, so I'm not sure which scale you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna let go of this clip because I don't want to try not to pass an hour here. So I'm going to show another clip that happened today today in day 22 when Johnny Depp was on the stand, but I'm going to show the clip of when he was cross-examined on the stand because Johnny Depp came back on the stand. So give me a second while I show it. All right, let me see what New York Beat says. Kate Moss from OC. I forgot she was Johnny Depp's ex-girlfriend. This could go right or left. Well, it went right because they didn't cross-examine her. Herb's team. They didn't cross-examine because they couldn't. She cleared things up because this chick lied. She said, oh, the first thing came to my mind was Kate Moss, how he pushed her down the stairs. So since Amber Heard brought her name up, so Kate Moss decided, well, hey, let me come on out here and clear things up because that's not what happened. Be careful what you say. All right, ladies and gentlemen, give me a second here. Let me share the screen because I'm going to show something else. I don't want to hold y'all here forever because it's kind of late. All right. Hold a second while I share the screen. Listen to the music while I share it. Okay, this clip is called, hold it just a second here, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully everybody having themselves a good night and a great one. All right, this clip here is called, this was today, day 22. Amber Heard's lawyer attempts to discredit Johnny Depp's claim about the black eye. All right, this is about almost 9 minutes. So let's hear what we have to say. And this will be the last clip I'm going to show for the evening. If you have any questions, put in the chat box. Let's get it.
You testify that you took a train ride from Bangkok to Singapore. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you claim that on this train ride that Miss Heard hit you in the face, correct?
Yes.
And left a black eye, correct?
Yes.
And Michelle, could you please pull up PX 162?
Is that already in evidence?
Yes, Your Honor.
Published to the jury?
Thank you. Mr. Depp, this is the picture that your counsel showed you both in your prior, or showed.
Look at that black eye. Gosh, this woman, she's crazy. A romantic trip, and she's over here. This woman's insane.
I'm sorry, which number was it?
This is a new exhibit, Your Honor, 1905.
And that's defendants?
Defendants Exhibit 1905.
Okay, thank you.
Ask for permission to publish, Your Honor.
Oh, you want to put it in evidence? Okay, any objection to 1905?
With the comments, we have no objection to the photograph itself. We would ask the comments be redacted as hearsay.
Well, I'd like to at least question the witness about the comments.
I have no objection to the photograph being published.
Okay, well, then let's wait a minute. Mr. Depp, you see here, these are 4 pictures of you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and below it indicate that they were taken on July 24th, 2015 in Bangkok, Thailand, correct?
Objection, lack of foundation, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
In Bangkok, Thailand, so before the train ride.
Correct, before the train ride, because you didn't get on the train ride till the 25th, is that right?
Somewhere in that area, I guess.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish this to the jury.
All right.
If it's just the photographs, we have no
All
objection.
right, you want to redact the, Just have the photographs in it.
Sure.
Hit the like, hit the like.
We'll do 1905.
5, just with redactions, it'll be fine. I think there's still some on the bottom. I'm not sure.
It's just redact that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Michelle, could you please scroll down to the bottom 2 pictures there? Mr. Depp, in these pictures that were taken before you got on the train ride for your honeymoon, where you claim that Miss Heard hit you and gave you a black eye, you have the exact same shadow or sunburn or mark under your left eye. The exact same mark, don't you?
That's the,
Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what he said on their honeymoon? This woman is crazy. Why are you fighting on your honeymoon? Why are you giving the man that your husband that you love a black eye? She's dangerous. This is a very dangerous woman. And he said he's been dealing with this crap for 6 years. I resume.
when you get a side light, you see the occipital bone. So that is the exact area.
Yep. And it's actually
a side light will cause that.
Yeah, well, the picture's not being taken from the side, is it? It's being taken head on, isn't it?
No. The lens in front,
the
light on the side, will cause that occipital bone, I believe it's called, to appear sunken.
Just like lights on the side of a train car, correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
You can take that down, Michelle.
That was in fact in the dark. I had people on either side of me, so I don't see where the light fill is from the side there.
Mr. Depp, if you could wait for the next question. Next question.
Next question. Even the picture your team chose to show you on that train isn't accurate, is it? Let's pull up.
Objection calls for speculation.
Let's pull up exhibit 1859, please.
1859. Is that in evidence?
No, Your Honor. Mr. Depp, this is the same picture, or the same exact same scene displayed in PX 162 that you looked at this morning, correct?
That looks like my face has been, the eyes have been photoshopped.
Oh, okay. So this post from the Eastern and Oriental Express's Facebook page, you're saying that that's photoshopped?
Is that from their page? I would, sure, why wouldn't they?
Let's pull them up side by side, please. Your Honor, I move for the admission of this exhibit. We can just have the pictures. We don't need the.
Any objection to the picture?
Objection, lack of foundation, lack of authentication.
Is that you in the photo, Mr. Depp?
It is me, but it's clearly.
Your Honor, I'd move to strike anything after that, first of all, and would ask for admission of this photograph.
All right, just a photograph?
Yep.
We maintain our lack of authentication, lack of foundation.
All right, over objection on 1859.
Thank you, Your Honor. Michelle, could I please get you to?
You need to redact it first.
We actually have one that will admit or ask to be admitted as 1858. That is just the picture.
I already have it.
Okay, so we'll call this 1859 then.
So this is 1859.
Yeah, we just need to.
Okay.
We'll fix that exhibit sticker on the bottom and get you that correct 1859.
1859.
And Michelle, what I'd like to ask you to do, please, is to put the picture displayed as 1859, just was admitted into evidence, next to PX 162 that was shown to Mr. Depp this morning.
Okay. You can pop those are both in evidence.
Can you try to make them the same size, please? This is the exact same picture, isn't it, Mr. Depp?
With radically different quality. And
No, you answered my question.
how do you know I wasn't done?
You answered my question, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Depp, you had that, whatever mark it is, whether it's a sunburn, whether it's a shadow, whether it's the light reflecting, you had that same mark on your eye before you got on that train.
Well, it's pretty difficult to get a sunburn on a train. And
let's
in
get
the
a-
photographs with the child, I don't look particularly sunburned. Can we see those again?
Let's pull up exhibit one. Actually, no, let's talk about Australia for a little bit.
Oh, good.
You testified that you.
Okay, I'm going to show one more clip that happened today. I want to see this clip. It's like 15 minutes. I don't know if it was before or after this, but it was something that he said in the trial that was very interesting. Hopefully, this is it. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, just give me a second here while I look for this clip here, okay? Enjoy the music while you wait. Let me show this other clip. And after this, I promise, I said I won't hold you any longer. Let's see what this clip has to say. Because I sure didn't catch that much today anyway. Okay, this clip is called, this was today, day 22, and it's called "This Never Had to Happen," Johnny Depp says about the case. Interesting. Let's listen.
Mr. Depp, Mr. Ronborn asked you some questions about the UK trial.
Oh, if I'm correct, this was before he got cross-examined. He was answering questions to his lawyers. It was before the last clip. Okay, so I'm going to show this one, and it's about 15 minutes, but I'm going to have it on normal speed. I might go to a little bit faster speed, but we'll see what happens. Everybody just sit back and enjoy. Let's get it.
Why do you feel that this is the first time that you've actually had an opportunity to tell your story and, as you said, get the load off your back?
As the UK trial was me suing Dan Wooten and the Sun for defamation for calling me a wife beater. The UK have there are different laws, there are different ways they handle things. There are also limitations in evidence. Some things can be brought up, some things cannot be
Your Honor,
brought up.
the Senate calls
Mr.
for a legal
Rottenborn.
conclusion. He's talking about limitations in evidence in the English.
Your Honor, he's talking about his experience testifying.
Overruled.
You'll be okay. Yes, there is a very, everything is quite boxed in with regard to what can be said, what can be spoken about. So Ms. Heard provided information to the Sun as their star witness, but the case was not brought against Ms. Heard. It was brought against the Sun newspaper, journal, whatever it is.
Mr. Rottenborn referenced that you were on the stand for multiple days.
4.5, I believe, yes.
Yeah. What was the nature of that examination? Or excuse me, who was conducting that examination of you?
QC Sasha was
And whose attorney was that?
the son's.
Can we please pull up DX 857A?
All right, it's already in evidence. So you can publish it.
Mr. Depp, do you recall seeing this text message when Mr. Rottenborn was questioning you?
Oh, yes, I do.
Can you explain what you're conveying to Mr. Carino in this text message?
I'm in total shock that this is happening to me, that my entire life on the planet has been brought to the head of a pin with all this completely, utterly false information. So I am, when you're accused of horrific acts and things that you have not done, when it's actually some very ugly things that are going out there into the world about you on a nonstop basis by Ms. Heard and her team, you have a tendency as humans to get very, very irate and angry, not to the point where you go out and hurt someone, not to the point even where you assault a cabinet. But you do get irate. You do wonder why this person is doing this to me. So many things go through your head. And then you've got your family, you've got your kids, you've got your parent. My mom, thankfully, didn't get to read any of this because that would have killed her. But my father,
Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what he said? This would have killed his mother. Thank God she wasn't there to read it. You see, when people do these lies, they don't realize how it affects other people. You know, that's the very terrible things that this woman has said about Johnny Depp. That's not true. But she doesn't care. She doesn't have empathy. She doesn't care. It's all about her. So when you're dealing with someone who doesn't have empathy and doesn't care and it's all about them, those could be some very dangerous people. And I advise you just to stay the hell away from them. Okay, keep your distance. Because all they're going to do is come into your life and cause havoc and destruction and try to destroy you. And this is what she basically was trying to do, was just destroy him. I feel that she just don't like him. She didn't like him from the beginning. I don't think she likes anybody. I mean, there's been things that was said that she was abusive to her own sister. Okay, so if you could be abusive to your sister, that means you could be abusive to anybody. You just don't care. I resume.
my family, everyone that I've met, the people that have supported me, suddenly I'm scum. Why? Never had to happen. One little lie. So yes, very angry.
Could we please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 821? Mr. Depp, do you recall seeing this text message when Mr. Rottenborn was asking you questions?
Yes, he loves this one, yes.
Yes. Would you care to explain what you're trying to convey in this text message?
Well, Warner Brothers were about to find themselves in quite a dilemma. as the person that they had just cast.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of foundation as to what Warner Brothers knew or thought.
Didn't I meet with them?
All right. We could just wait for the question. I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Mr. Depp, without
your water,
explaining
Amber?
what
What you got in your
Warner
water?
Brothers felt, why did you send this text message to your sister? And what were, excuse me, strike that. What were you trying to convey to your sister when you sent this text message?
Honestly, I felt responsibility for having gone to those people and painted such a beautiful picture.
Objection. Hearsay, Your Honor. Now he's talking about what he said to Warner Brothers.
Overruled.
Please continue.
Change seats.
So, sorry, you can continue.
I felt it was my responsibility to get the truth to Warner Brothers about what they were going to end up facing down the line, which is 2 franchises that would be causing problems for one another, especially as any news, any press, any media that came out about me at that time had been turned into, I was Charles Manson. I was the worst thing on earth, and they just kept coming. It was like a nonstop fire. So my responsibility, after having painted a beautiful picture of her for them, was to tell them, I think you better.
Objection, Your Honor. He's getting into what he claims he told Warner Brothers or wanted to.
He's saying what he wanted to tell them. He's not saying what he actually told them.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Mr. Depp, you mentioned 2 franchise films with Warner Brothers. What 2 franchise films are you referring to?
There was Aquaman and Fantastic Beasts, the one that I was in.
And why did you feel a responsibility with respect to those 2 franchise films?
Warner Brothers was starting to get quite upset about some of the things that were being said about me in the press that were constant hit pieces. On one level, yes, it's just acting, it's just movies, but it's business and it's your word. And I had given my word to them, and I felt responsible that I had to tell them exactly what was going on, and that it was going to end up ugly.
And which of those 2 film franchises were you a part of?
I'm sorry?
Which of those 2 film franchises were you a part of?
I was in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and I was in the Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Could we please pull up DX 883? Now, Mr. Depp, do you recall seeing these text messages during Mr. Ronborn's examination?
Oh, God, yeah. Yes, I remember.
And you didn't seem to recall these text messages, is that right?
It truly is fair. It's not. I'm not.
Do you have any?
Knows. I don't know who Molly is. I don't know nothing about this.
Do you have any understanding of what you're referring to in this text message, or these 2 text messages?
No. I honestly, if somebody else had borrowed my phone or something and made this text to Stephen, possibly. But I don't understand. I don't have that kind of. I don't have that kind of hubris or expectation. That's quite grotesque text.
Can we take that down, please? Can we please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1821? Mr. Depp, do you recognize this document?
That is behind the bar, yes.
Okay. And do you see Mr. Ronborn asked you some questions about whether there was a telephone
Yes,
in
and now
Australia.
I see a telephone there now.
Yes. And did you recall that telephone being there?
I don't recall the telephone being there, but I can see it now.
Can we please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1820? Do you recall me showing you this text message earlier on? Or excuse me, do you recall me showing you this picture during your examination?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And I think I asked you whether you recall a phone being mounted on the wall in the left of this picture. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And what was your answer to that?
No.
Mr. Depp, Mr. Rottenborn asked you some questions about your honeymoon. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And I believe you had testified that you and Miss Heard were on the Orient Express together.
That's correct, yes.
Where had you been prior to being on the Orient Express?
We had been in Australia, and then made it over to Thailand to catch the Orient Express.
If we could bring up the Plaintiff's Exhibit 162 again. Mr. Depp, do you know who took this picture?
Malcolm Connolly.
And despite what Mr. Rottenborn showed you about the picture of you prior to this, do you see a bruise on your face in this picture?
I can't believe this drama on a honeymoon from her.
I see like what looks like a pretty decent shiner and a kind of a scratched up nose, yes.
And do you recall how you got the scratches and the shiner?
There was a very brief freak out that Miss Heard had in our cabin just before this dinner. I can't remember why, but there were many. I remember taking the photograph, though. I mean, I remember being there. I remember meeting the chef and whatnot. But I mean, the quality of the photo is not great. The quality of the other photo that he showed us has been prettied up.
Mr. Depp, did you ever physically abuse Miss Heard during your relationship?
Never. Never.
No further questions.
All right, sir, you can have a seat next to your attorneys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Your next witness.
You notice how he took off his glasses when he said never. Like, look at my eyes. Okay, so that's going to be about the end of the clips that I'll be showing today of day 22. That's the end. So, anybody have any questions? I'll give you a second or two, but thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for engaging. I want to do update, highlights for today. I'll probably do highlights for tomorrow. It's Thursday, but I believe this is the last week. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Maybe tomorrow will be closing arguments. I don't know. I didn't see the end of what they said was going to be for tomorrow, but we'll see what happens. But Kate Moss basically checked Amber Heard. So you're full of lies. I don't have no music here. This is not good. Not good. Maybe put some music on here. So, yes, you've been checked by Kate Moss, his ex-girlfriend. You lied. And your lawyers couldn't cross-examine her because how can you? She's supposed to be the victim, that so-called that Johnny Depp pushed down the stairs, right? Amber, liar, liar, pants on fire. All right, so stay tuned for more. We're going to see what's going to happen. I believe it's last week. So I guess they're going to have the verdict. And I know they want to try to hurry up and do it because this is Memorial Weekend this weekend. All right, everybody. So everybody had this just a great night and a blessed one. And stay tuned for some more of Donna Just Being Real, the only way to be. Thank you for being here. And let's close out. Bye.